Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that doesn't plan to sleep between now and Black Friday. I'm Steve Watts.
And I'm Brian Carr. Steve, as always, today's Chattycast brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/Chattycast. That's ChattyCast, though I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you know how to spell it.
Probably.
I just want to help you out as much as I can.
That's a safe bet. So every week we pick a big topic, post about it in the Shack News Chatty, ask for your comments, and then we talk about it with your comments fueling the discussion, hence Chattycast. This week, our guest is the second busiest man in Hollywood next to James Franco, our own Ozzy Mejia.
Greetings, travelers.
And we're going to get to our big topic, which is the fall release schedule in general. Sort of picked a broad, we're just going to geek out over some games kind of topic. But first, we're going to talk about what we've been playing lately. And to start it off, I think we've all been playing one very specific thing lately. Do you guys want to kick it off with that?
Well, we've been playing it over the last 2 hours, I would say.
Yeah, over the last, hour-ish. Very lately.
I played it twice an hour ago. I don't know.
I played, I think, 4 matches. We should specify what we're talking about. I played, I think, like 4 matches. It's the Hearthstone Tavern Brawl, which this week is a very special episode of the Tavern Brawl because it's sort of acting as a preview for the content that's coming for Reels next week, the whole TGT expansion. So, of course, they based a Tavern Brawl on it, and those of us curious to see how that plays jumped in very quickly. And Ozzy, you already put up a video of yourself.
Oh, yeah. I wasted no time. Like, I got the very first match, and I go, okay, if I lose, I lose. If I come out looking really bad, whatever. But I'm going to get the very first match recorded. And it looked really bad. I mean, the hunter gets all the jousting minions, and that will almost always go in their favor because every time, like, if you had to draw a card, they'd end up with like a 7 mana and like a 9 mana, and I'd end up with like a lowly squire. Like, okay, so I'm gonna come out on the short end of this every time. But it's kind of similar to the Ragnaros and Nefarian Tavern Brawl in that the longer it goes, the more it favors the mage. Just because the deck packs a couple of Frost Giants, and the Frost Giant, of course, gets cheaper the more you use your hero power.
Basically becomes free around
right.
Turn 11 or 12, yeah.
So if you don't finish off the mage really fast, and he's gonna play a pair of Frost Giants, and at that point, it's just gonna be practically game over. But the other one that I really loved was the new legendary, not Ronin, but the other one. And crap, I don't remember its name. But it's
the Acid Maw, the hunter.
Not the Acid Maw for the hunter. The other mage legendary.
Oh, the one that adds a spell.
The one with the Inspire effect that gives you a free spell every time you use it. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be an awesome one to use.
Yeah, I wanted to combine that with one of those like use your power 2 times, use your power infinite times, whatever kinds of things. I actually did have one fun round where I was playing. I had the Caldara Drake out, and so I could use my power as many times as I wanted. And I also had my lowly squire, and so I just used it like 5 times.
Yikes.
And got him up to like 10 attack. He killed it next turn, obviously, but I got like the fun experience of having like a 10 attack lowly squire hit his face. I think I ended up losing that match because I had lethal, but I was just like, well, whatever. I want to see the rest of the cards in my deck, so I just didn't take it, and then he killed me.
I love that you've already found a use for Polymorph Boar that I didn't even think of.
Oh, the Polymorph Boar. That was another experience. I had my opponent down to 10. And I had just a 2-attack guy on the board, and I was up to like 28 health or something, so it wasn't looking like that bad for me or anything. But I had 2 Polymorph Boars in my hand, so I hit with a 2, then Polymorph Boar, that leads to another 4 because it has charge, and then I Polymorph Boar again. I didn't know whether or not they would let you do that, like transform it twice, and they did. So that was like 8 damage right there. That was a fun win. So, Brian, what are your thoughts so far on this Tavern Brawl?
I think that they got some really interesting mechanics, and it's interesting to see how the sort of like the kind of like the alpha or beta testing phase, where you can kind of see, okay, this is where this might work with this card, or this is where this might work when I use this card. I think that the jousting mechanic can get a little bit frustrating. just
Oh, yeah.
because it is so inherently based on luck. There's almost no strategy to it. The only way you could really build a deck, and I'm curious to see how the metagame is going to handle this, because the only way you can really build a deck to take advantage of the jousting mechanic is to just stack it with high value cards, which makes it really, really difficult to,
Yeah, you're very vulnerable in the early game then.
And so it's a really high risk, high reward thing. And the question is, will the reward really be worth the risk? So I'm not entirely sold on that as a mechanic. I think Inspire is pretty cool.
I think Joust, at least in this example, Joust is very swingy. Like if it benefits you, it really benefits you. But it can also like totally flame out. But I think ultimately the Joust minions that get used are going to be the ones that have like at least okay stats on their own, so that if you lose the Joust, it's not the worst thing in the world. The one thing that I think bugs me the most about the Joust, at least when I'm playing a deck that's so obviously geared towards like Hunter, is when you tie. Because I had that happen once or twice, and it's like when you tie, you should just draw again or something, like, or it should default to like the higher attack minion or something, because having a tie and then just nothing happening is kind of frustrating. A tie is basically a loss for you because you don't get the benefit.
My only objection to the jousting mechanic right now is that there are a couple of those minions where there isn't really any consequence if you lose the joust. I mean, something like the Paladin's Tusker Jouster, where at 5 mana, 5/5 is great. That's totally fine. And at that point, the jousting effect is just gravy. Like you just get recover 7 health. So there isn't really any consequence if you lose, but if you win, great. You're in even better shape than you were before. So
I kind of wonder why they didn't do that. Like Joust, if you win this, if you lose this. I was kind of expecting something like that to come along, and none of the cards really do that. So yeah, I think it's an interesting first look at least. I guess we'll see how it develops once we have the full set of cards in hand and all that.
My only
I know
parting
we've all been
shot
kind
on
of
this is
hoarding our gold.
my only parting shot on the Tavern Brawl right now is that lock and load is going to be every bit as ridiculous as people think it is. That's going to be insanely good.
And if you get it with the coin, oh man, I saw somebody. This wasn't me, but somebody used it on me. And it was only on like turn 4, but they used like that coin, arcane shot, and then I think something else. So it's like, well, you just got 3 free cards.
Yeah, I've had someone use Hunter's Mark, arcane shot. Like that's God, as if the Hunter needed like more. Like, more advantages, but there we go.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so yeah, what else have you been occupying yourself with, Ozzy?
I have been jumping into the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 beta, which is well, there's not much to say about it right now other than that it's very Call of Duty. I didn't really play the last 2 Black Ops games, so I don't remember if there were actually unlock tokens that were actually tied to, unlocking new perks or whatever. But, I'm early in. I'm kind of enjoying it. It's still jarring to me to have like basically the realism of Call of Duty basically thrown out the window in favor of like the specialist abilities and all that. Yes, they basically got either superpowers or super.
Let's call it what it is.
It's still a little weird, but I'm kind of enjoying it, like for what it is. What's still a little crazy to me is that most people are still engaged in team deathmatch and domination. Like a lot of the other game modes, like the more strategic ones, like capture the flag and all that, don't really have a lot of players right now on PS4. But maybe that'll change over the weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody, you enjoyed the traversal tools in Advanced Warfare. I remember. So as somebody who enjoyed that, like, is this trying to do something similar, or is it trying to set itself apart?
I basically love that that while Advanced Warfare kind of focused on more like the mech element of Titanfall, Black Ops 3 is focusing more on the infantry side of Titanfall, where it's basically like just wall runs, slides, like rocket boosts, that type of thing. It's just like double jumps. Like it's the movement I feel like is really fluid. It actually did a really good job with that. And just the fact that you can basically shoot on a dime and just shoot from any position is actually really cool. So I'm definitely loving the movement side of it, and I'm definitely loving the just the versatility and the mobility of moving around. The one thing that I will note, and I think it was actually Joe that pointed this out, is that the maps are kind of on the small side. And when the maps are on the small side, that makes spawn killing really easy. So I know that.
Is that because they're pushing it in other ways? Like, what do you think is the reason for that?
I don't think they're pushing for like verticality as much as they were in Advanced Warfare. But I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is just they're trying to like open up new areas, kind of like underwater type type places. But when you have such a small venue, Call of Duty has kind of always had this problem to an extent where like you'll spawn in, and you'll die like 2 seconds later because the action is always flowing. But it's a little more frustrating this time around. Maybe it'll get better as it goes, but for right now, I'm kind of noticing that getting spawn killed is much easier this time around than it was like the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm. So Brian, what have you been occupying yourself with aside from obviously the Tavern Brawl that we talked about?
So I haven't had a whole lot of time to play games over the last few days for reasons that are kind of opposite and sort of not really related to the show. But I have had the time to kind of delve into a few things. I finished the main storyline in Future Fight, so I have seen how that story
I didn't know
ends
that
and what
had
happens.
like an ending.
It
Nice.
does, but the story doesn't matter. Like
Okay.
there's not really even a story, and in fact, the ending, and this is not really a spoiler because there really isn't an ending. Like literally, it just ends by saying that this is all happening in a constant loop. Like it's never going to end. It's actually, I'm assuming there's going to be more content coming, but as it stands, it's a really depressing kind of meta narrative on
That
the nature
sounds-
of superhero media and mobile games.
That
Because,
sounds
like,
very
literally-
cerebral, where it's like time is a closed circle, everyone.
But
we just keep
it
going
does.
around and around.
It does, but it does it in the dumbest possible ways. Like first off, I'm not like again. I'm trying not to spoil this for anybody, but if you're playing Future Fight for the storyline, you're doing it wrong. Like this is a game where you have superheroes get stronger and they punch things and their numbers go up. That's it. But it's just I don't know. I was playing it on the plane and I'm just like nah. Okay, I'm glad I did it, but this was a whole lot of nothing. But I wasn't really expecting anything either. I also tried out a new mobile game called Monsters Ate My Metropolis. This is, of course, the sequel to the fantastic puzzle game Monsters Ate My Condo. The idea is that instead of it being like a stacking puzzle game the way the first game was, now it's more of a card battling game. So you have your monster. You can pick from like a robot unicorn. You can pick from a pug in this like robot death suit, and then you fight other people's cities, and you're trying to play cards against each other to try and do the most damage that you can. And like each card has a different color, and the colors, some colors are stronger or weaker against other colors, so the cards get stronger or weaker based on that. And then your character has some different things, like I have the pug guy, so he gets a buff to all yellow cards you play. So, a good strategy is kind of load your deck up with yellow cards. So, and you can kind of see what cards the other people have before you go and decide to attack them. I don't like it as much as I liked the original game because it's just not that. It's not as good as that. But for what it is, it's pretty good. And then I also got the chance to play around a little bit because Metal Gear Solid 5 is coming out, as we'll be talking about momentarily, I'm sure. I decided to go back and get the HD collection on Vita, and I will tell you right now, Snake Eater is every bit as frustrating as I remember. That game is... I'm not saying it's not a good game. It's a fantastic game. It's just incredibly frustrating to play sometimes, especially early on.
Right.
That actually reminds me that I should probably go back and get Ground Zeroes while it's still part of the Games with Gold lineup.
Yeah. Still free-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, you forget how much Metal Gear Solid 4 did to modernize that series until you go back and play an older one and you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to use the right stick to aim, and it actually penalizes you for doing that because on the Vita you've got the right, so you got the right trigger, which goes in first-person mode.
For all your
Square,
listeners,
which
Brian is making the hand claw motions on the video stream. This is
And-
why you
and,
need
like,
to watch.
you're trying to use your thumb to push both the fire button and move the right stick, and it's impossible. Then I learned that you can just use the left stick to aim, and that's made it better. But you actually are penalized for trying to play it the way you'd play a game that came out in the last 6 years. So it's a little bit frustrating, but it's still, I mean, it's a good port of that. Yeah, and it just haven't had a whole lot of access to internet, but I really, really, really want to try out Heroes of the Storm and play with the monk character Kazurim, just because I think he looks like a lot of fun.
Yes, I know. I know we've got some Heroes of the Storm love among staff, and I still just feel so far behind.
I need to try him out myself, just because the idea of being able to pick your trait is a really interesting one, and I've been interested in it ever since I first heard about it. And I remember at E3 asking Blizzard, I go, if this takes off, are you going to go back and add additional traits to existing characters? They're not ruling that out, so that could be interesting. This could be a big change to the game.
Yeah, I like how they're constantly kind of adding and trying new things and taking out stuff that doesn't work and making things it kind of feels like some of the stuff maybe should have been figured out earlier, but it's kind of fascinating from the sort of academic development side. How does this game change and grow and get better, or maybe worse, depending on how you look at it, over time as it's actually put out into the live player base, and you can see what people are doing with it. It's neat.
I've been playing, and this is already out, so I don't have to worry about embargoes, but I've been playing some Toy Soldiers War Chest, which is the Toy Soldiers that has licensed old action figures, basically. I don't know if you guys have played Toy Soldiers before, but it's basically an RTS where, not an RTS, it's a tower defense game, yeah, where you can take control of individual units, and you're a more effective gunner than the AI gunner. They sort of intentionally make the AI kind of stupid so that you can be better at it. But this one has, let's see, it's got He-Man, G.I. Joe, and Cobra, which they count as two separate things. Even though it's G.I. Joe and Cobra.
Well, you should. I mean, they are two separate.
Yeah, I mean
entities.
they're two separate sides, but they're the same property. And Assassin's Creed, which is not a classic.
I was gonna say one of these things is not like the other,
which is not a classic toy property, and it kind of stands out. The funny thing is they also have other toys in there that are obviously supposed to be there's one called Star Gem or some stupid thing like that, and it's okay, you were obviously trying to get the Rainbow Bright license or something, and the Rainbow Bright people were like, no. And you just kind of filed the serial numbers off and called it something different. So there's a lot of that going around. There's a lot of very obvious references to other
giant
kinds
robots
of toys.
called form changers.
Yeah, there's no giant robots or My Little Pony.
Robomorphers.
My army that I've chosen as sort of the one that I'm using the most is Cobra. Longtime listeners to the Chattycast will know that I think Brian's first appearance, we named the episode Cobra, or more accurately, Cobra. Because you have to yell that whenever you summon or whatever.
So answer me this, Steven.
Yes.
I have two questions for you. One, is the Assassin's Creed team just Ezio, just a bunch of Ezios?
Well, it's a bunch of assassins. They've got the siege towers with a bunch of assassins on it. Or they're everyone has a special power-up version where you get to take to the battlefield as a special unit. And there's three tiers of that. There's always the land unit, the tank unit, and then the air unit. And the air unit for the assassins is a bunch of assassins on those Da Vinci hang gliders, just dropping bombs or something, I guess.
So my second question is, when you are playing as Cobra, do you yell in a Cobra Commander voice at the screen?
I do not. My throat would be shot. I couldn't do that. But
follow my orders.
I like to imagine, yeah,
like that. I used to be able to do that way better. That's why I didn't want to do it, but I did it.
It's pretty fun because you've got the Cobra bunkers, and they have that look of the old style bright blue plastic and the Cobra logo everywhere and stuff. So it's actually pretty cool. I know that some people have said they've had some technical issues and glitches of different kinds with that, but I haven't really had any yet. I'll see if I do before I finish it.
This is starting to sound like Robot Chicken, the game.
Yeah, it kind of is.
That's got to be the sequel, right?
It kind of totally is. And you can basically, it's one of my major complaints with it that I guess I kind of have to see how it goes as I go along, because I think if you buy the deluxe package or whatever, you just get all the heroes unlocked. But it's a lot like a free-to-play game, but it's not free, in that a lot of the way you unlock stuff is you earn currency, and that gives you these random packs of different upgrades that you can equip onto your army. And also, of course, you can buy currency to buy a bunch of those packs if you want to.
Of course you can.
And they separate the packs by character or not character, but like franchise. So like you can buy a Cobra pack and it'll just have Cobra parts, which is actually pretty good because if you were trying to mainline as Cobra and you kept getting like He-Man parts, you'd be like, son of a bitch. But yeah, it is very free to play-ish, and then each of the heroes individually is like $5. Which if you just know that you only want to play as He-Man or something, you could just buy the base game and He-Man, and you'd probably pay less than the deluxe version. So it is very oddly F2P-ish, which I find strange. The other game that I played quite a bit of was Beyond Eyes, and a review is on Shack News, and that is a gorgeous game with a really clever metaphor that is so boring.
That's so disappointing.
It's just so boring. I was trying not to fall asleep, like literally trying not to fall asleep. And it's like when people criticize Gone Home, they're like, oh, it's just a walking game. You're just walking, and to an extent, like in the gameplay sense, like that is what the gameplay is allowing you to do. But you yourself, the player, you are figuring out this mystery, and that's sort of breaking this wall between the player and the game in an interesting way. Beyond Eyes, you are just walking. Like you see like a goal that you want to get to, and you're walking around and sort of filling in the map to figure out where you can and can't walk, and that's pretty much it. So
basically, it's just like putting a blindfold on and just like walking around your house and trying not to hit.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like that. Only with beautiful watercolor imagery. So I highly recommend people look at it, like look up a video of it or something. But just playing it is very dull, and it's only a few hours long, but it feels too long. And the ending frustrated the hell out of me. It ends, I won't spoil how, but it ends in this very nonsensical way where you can tell they were kind of trying to make this statement or metaphor of some kind, but it doesn't really make any sense.
You're all blind, Steve. Who's the blind one here?
Yeah, who is really blind? I recommend you look it up on YouTube. I'll say that. At any rate, let's move into our big topic. Now, this week's big topic is especially big because we decided to do upcoming games. The fall release season is right around the corner. We kind of wanted to take a week where we just kind of geek out and have fun talking about all the big games that are coming. I counted up this giant list of games that I wrote down. This is basically our entire big release list. It's more than 40 games. Obviously, we cannot spend any significant amount of time on that many games, or this podcast would last all day. So we're going to skip around a bit. I'm going to be sort of trying to bring up some in particular. Some might be important later. There's a hint. And obviously the ones that our chatty community brought up. But let me just start by saying most anticipated game is a good way to start it out. Ozzy, what are you looking forward to the most?
The more I see it, the more I really want Super Mario Maker. That's just looking like such a beautiful little playground. And in some ways, I'm kind of dreading it because the more I see of it, the more I'm just like, this is it. This is the end of 2D Mario as we know it. There is nowhere for 2D Mario to go from here. It's going to be Mario.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's basically going to be 2D Mario forever and ever and ever, and there is nothing new they can add to that formula. It is done as we know it. But God, do I want it.
See, I kind of want them to add new things to the formula. Like they're,
oh, don't get me wrong. They can add tools to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I would like to see this become. Is the platform that they constantly add DLC, like new tools, new assets, even just new ways of combining existing items. Yeah, that would be really cool.
But as far as a standalone 2D Mario game, that's done. They can't do that anymore.
Well, they could make they could make a new one that introduces new hats or I don't know, whatever.
They'd have to drastically change it in some way.
But just the new Super Mario Brothers thing, I think this is the end of that series probably. Because how do you do that once you let people make their own new Super Mario Brothers levels?
Yeah, and from the levels I've seen, the levels are incredible. How do you top that? And how do you top the creativity of the public at large?
Yeah, and I can't talk too much about it because I actually am reviewing it, but I'll say the sorting tools seem pretty. There's only so many people making levels so far. It's just other people who have review copies. But the sorting tools seem robust enough that like you're always going to be able to find new stuff pretty easily. And that's really good news because you need that for a game like this. I remember when they first announced it and people were like, "Are you going to be able to download levels online?" And they're like, and as journalists, we were all like, "What? How could you not?" Like, but yeah, it seems like they figured that stuff out pretty well. So once it gets out there into the public at large, I feel like it's just going to be just constant Mario.
And it's
forever.
another one of those very rare Wii U games that actually really does take advantage of the gamepad in a good way.
Which raises questions about the NX, but I won't go down that.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet.
But that was actually one of the comments. Somebody said, "Stupid excited about Mario Maker and all the stuff they've been showing, like the start screen shenanigans from Mario Paint, have me in a tizzy." I think that might have been Bad Kitty, but I'm not sure. I'll look it up. So yeah, they do have like references, like that person mentioned, of like Mario Paint references, and it's like, when's the last time you've seen a Mario Paint reference?
The only thing that kind of bums me out about Mario Maker is that I feel like we're seeing too much of it too fast. The streaming community is basically just putting everything out there. And
yeah, I mean, there's more than most games. I'll say this. Oh, that was one random winner who said that. More than most games, Nintendo always has fairly extensive embargo notes to kind of a strange degree. I think this is probably the longest embargo notes I've ever seen. So I don't know. I don't know if people are just breaking it, or
I think everybody's going to break it in one form or another, and it's not going to be entirely intentional.
Things. Yeah, I'm not actually sure if the things that are getting out there are things that people are allowed to show and talk about and things like that. But it is, packed with surprises, and that's kind of the point. So hopefully us dumb streamers don't just spoil all of the surprises before it comes out.
Like, I've basically decided I'm not watching anything until I actually get the game.
It's like watching a trailer. You don't want it ruined for you.
Right.
Yeah, that might be wise. So Mario Maker, very exciting, I think, for all of us. Brian, since I asked Ozzy his most anticipated, what is your most anticipated?
Well, I've got like a little.
And if it is Mario
over
Maker, then that's fine. We can just talk about something else.
Well, Mario Maker is probably the most immediate one, but I'll mention some other stuff. I'm actually kind of torn between two of them, and luckily they come out within like 2 days of each other, so it's not like I have to wait very long. But I've got Disney Infinity 3.0 on here.
That's very soon, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't know what it is. Like I've noticed there's like a lot of backlash against that game on, especially on certain major message boards. Not Chatty, but
that will remain nameless.
Yeah, they will remain nameless. But we all know
the Chatty posters that I've seen post about it are actually kind of looking forward to it.
Well, it's because the Chatty community.
Those figures look badass. Like
they look great.
The same thing that happened with the Marvel one, where it was just like, oh my god, those figures look amazing. Like I just want the figures.
Yeah,
I don't even care.
I'm excited for the game, but I'm more excited because I want Boba Fett. But anyway, but yeah, of course they're excited about it. The Chatty community is built around light and joy and happiness. But anyway, they're good people. But it's just I don't know. Like, What's interesting about it is that like it's the stuff where you can create your own worlds and your own games. I'm like, I don't really want to do that, but I like the idea of what they're doing with the play sets. They seem a lot more diverse and a lot more interesting this time, because last time I went probably deeper than I really wanted to or should have done, but it's because it was Marvel and the play sets. The Guardians one was pretty good. But the Spider-Man one's really boring, and I've only barely played the Avengers one. So I'm really, really hoping they kind of polish that up this year. But everything I've seen is making me think they're going to actually make this closer to what the game should have been in the first place.
Brian, I think not to cut you off, but it's funny that you said that you're not that interested in the world creation stuff because, like, the toy box mode is basically like the genesis of all of this from that Toy Story 3 game that Avalanche made several years ago. That people were like, "This is amazing," Yeah. So it's kind of that's where it all started, and now it's sort of developed into this point where you just want the Star Wars content, basically. you know.
Well, and I also love seeing what people come up with. That's the thing. I don't have time to sit down and like build worlds, but I love seeing what people download, or like I love downloading people create, trying out the different games. I saw a picture. Somebody made a toy box for 2.0 where it's basically Attack on Titan, and
Nice.
I don't like Attack on Titan, but the way that was set up, like that's a really clever usage of the toy box and of the assets that you have to kind of create something that's based on this very, here's this huge enemy coming in. You have to do these different things, rescue townspeople. That's really, really cool. That's really clever. And being able to port that over into this space is really neat. So that's cool. I'm not super excited about how much Kingdom Hearts is getting in there. I kind of liked when we had this clear delineation between Kingdom Hearts and the rest of what Disney Interactive was doing.
Kinds of Disney games, yeah.
Yeah. But, whatever. It'll make people happy.
The one thing that sort of bothered me in the past about Disney Infinity, and maybe they changed that for this year, as I haven't been keeping up with the coverage well enough to know for sure, but I kind of feel like once you finish a playset like with its official characters, you should just be able to bring in any characters.
I agree.
They really lock that thing behind like, oh, well, now you can bring in other Star Wars characters, or in the previous version it was really Marvel characters. But like if I want to play through A New Hope as Mulan, like just let me do it.
Right. I want to be Donald Duck in the next one.
Leia as Mulan. Like, what's the harm? She might use the wrong pronoun during the VO sometime. Like, who cares?
So I think the problem with that, and this is one of the issues with Disney Infinity in general, as much as I enjoy the game, I love the figures, I think it's really cool and creative and fun. What I don't like about it is that it's very much also sort of this, it's a promotional tool, right? They put out figures, they put out characters, playsets to promote stuff that Disney wants to promote. Like, for example, there is a figure from the movie The Good Dinosaur, and you think, oh, cool, a dinosaur. No, it's Little Caveman Kid. Nobody wanted that. But the game is not set up to support four-legged characters. They've gone over this several times. So they had to get something out to promote that movie, but the game doesn't give people what they actually want from that movie. So it just kind of feels like this big sort of waste of time. And that also comes back to the fact that apparently the fact that that Marvel and Star Wars and Disney can't really mix outside of the toy box is apparently a Disney edict. They don't want that stuff bleeding into each other for some reason. That's so silly, though,
because that feels like it's the point.
Yeah. I don't get it. Okay, so especially when Disney itself has sold Star Wars and Disney mashup figurines at their theme parks for years. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think like Marvel's got some beef where they don't really want their characters doing this. I don't know. It's all silly and ridiculous, and it hurts what could be like if they did it right. Disney Infinity would basically be the biggest Toys to Life game, and there's no question about it.
Yep, I agree.
But I still think this one looks great. I'm excited for the new combat and the spaceships and stuff like that. So I'm hoping.
The four-legged character thing you bring up is kind of interesting. I never thought about that before, but that would explain why we haven't seen anything from the Lion King yet.
Yep.
Which I would have thought would be a.
You'd have to have Simba walking around on two legs.
This has actually been a thing. Like fans ask for that stuff all the time. They said, "Look, our models, our engine just is not set up to do that yet." I don't really know why, but
they're fixing up for 4.0 hopefully.
Yeah, that and water mechanics. That's why we don't have anything for like the Little Mermaid. But when Finding Dory comes out,
from the future-facing this fall's games discussion, but what does Disney 4.0 even look like? Because when they came out with Marvel, we were all like, "And next year's Star Wars." Like we all know that next year's Star Wars.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of speculation that we're going to see probably just more of each of the different universes, but we might see a little more focus on Disney classics and stuff like that. But I will tell you right now, they're going to have stuff out for Finding Dory. And that's where they'll figure out the swimming mechanics because Disney wants to promote that movie.
Yes.
So stuff like that's a pretty safe bet. But you're right. I don't really know what's coming next. We know that
unless
Peter
they have
Pan's
some other big acquisition in the works that we don't know about yet. And all of a sudden they own something
Disney
else.
Infinity Transformers or something stupid like that.
Yes, something like that.
There will be strings pulled, and we'll see some sort of Indiana Jones content at some point.
Oh,
that would be awesome. That's a good idea.
I'm pretty sure they own.
Make sure you get your Mutt Jones figure.
Oh, jeez.
It looks exactly like Shia LaBeouf. All right, so
we're going to have to do next to Cough from the Jungle Book going, snakes. It had to be snakes.
They'll have a special interaction. At any rate, we're going to have to do some quick hits through a lot of these, but I'll talk about my most anticipated. obviously I was looking forward to Mario Maker and I'm looking forward to Disney Infinity, but I want to get lost in Fallout 4. I want to like just dump hours into that game. I want to put my head down in it and like not come out for a long time and look around the world like a strange place, like I don't recognize it anymore. My memories of Fallout 3 feel ancient at this point because it just feels like it was such a long time ago. But my memories are, throwing on some headphones and either listening to a podcast or listening to their, 20s radio music, and just like playing for hours and just like wandering in a direction and finding some weird shit. It's the thing that I loved about Skyrim when I reviewed that a few years ago, but a little less dour, serious Swords and Dragons kind of feel. It's more like it's silly. Like there's a lot of like silly, weird humor in the Fallout games that's kind of dark because it's about the end of the world. But I just kind of love that world and that sense of humor and just being able to be lost in those kinds of worlds for a long time. So that is the one that I'm most anticipating easily. And it took so long.
But then again, like the scope that they're going at for this one, it kind of had to take that long.
Yeah.
In fact, the scope is kind of what keeps me from being super excited about it because I'm like, I know I'm not going to have time to sit down and play this.
And props to Bethesda
I'm still going to, but
props to Bethesda for waiting so long to announce it that they're like, and it's coming this year. Like
yes, absolutely, 100%.
As soon as they announced it, they broke the usual PR cycle of like it'll be out in like 2 years and we'll keep you updated and blah blah blah. They just came out with a bang.
Yep.
I don't know if that's like sort of an edict for them going forward, or if they just knew that this game was the size and scope that they could do that. But I love when game companies do that. Like Nintendo does that more often these days now too. There's no reason you need to let people know about your game 2 years in advance, or whatever.
Unless it's Zelda.
Yes, unless it's Zelda, in which case you only told people 2 years in advance because it kept getting pushed.
Yep.
You didn't really mean to. It just happened. So we're going to have to do some very quick hits. If somebody wants to talk longer about one of these things, we can. But let's try to keep things initially to like a sentence or two for each of these games. I'm going to go through them really quickly. You ready?
Let's do it.
This is like the lightning round. Okay. And it's roughly in chronological order. Until Dawn.
Don't like slasher movies. Interested in how this is going to turn out. Looks like Telltale game on steroids.
Right. Ozzy?
I liked what I saw at PlayStation Experience. I like the idea that basically whatever consequences you get from the early part of the game will carry over to the end. If somebody dies in the first part, he'll stay dead throughout the whole story. So basically you get something different every time you play it. That's interesting.
Yeah. Madden, NFL 16.
What more can they do with Madden at this point? Because obviously they're not improving the core as much as people want, and I don't know what else you can say about the base game. But that Draft Champions mode looks interesting. I love that when I went to Judges Week, they basically acknowledged, yeah, this is Hearthstone, basically. This is Hearthstone for football. I love that.
Footstone is what we're calling it.
This sounds great.
So, Ozzy and I guess Brian, you're both bigger sports game fans than I am. I have some others on my list that I want to sort of rattle off and let me know if any of them stand out as something that you want to talk about more. NHL 16, Pro Evo Soccer 16, FIFA 16, NBA Live 16, and NBA 2K 16. Are any of those something that we want to talk about more?
I am intrigued to see what NBA 2K16 does with the story mode. And the fact that they actually went out of their way and got Spike Lee to write them a story. And I go, okay, this is interesting. I want to see, like, we don't see this in sports games very often. And the last time NBA did something like this, I think was for the Michael Jordan Challenge not too long ago. And that was the last time that people were talking about NBA 2K as like an actual Game of the Year contender. So I want to see where this goes. I'm very curious. I'm very interested in it.
Brian, any of those stand out to you?
I will second what Ozzy says about 2K. I think that the production values will make that very, very interesting. The rest of them, I'm basically going to wait for them to hit EA Access. I am not buying new sports games. The only one I will make an exception for is the show, but that's not coming out until 2016, so forget it.
I mean, silly me, I missed WWE 2K16.
I
which is
can
also
talk about that one if you
a
want.
sports game.
If they can revamp the mechanics in the W, because I know 2K has only had the WWE license for a couple of years, but if they can basically revamp the gameplay, then I'd be interested in checking it out. Sure.
They were making good strides toward that. Because of course I reviewed the last one for the site, and I thought that the gameplay was probably better in that one than it has been before. I'm excited to see who they're going to dredge up because they're already going to some really obscure places for characters, including the Terminator stuff sounds just completely stupid, and I'm kind of into it. And some of the wrestlers they've shown actually look really, really good. So I'm hoping that they'll build on what they did last year and make this something that even people who don't care about the wrestling part of it or don't really care about the actual product will at least be able to enjoy the game, kind of like how it used to be in the N64 days. Even if you don't like wrestling, you still like No Mercy and
it's about the
that sort of thing.
pageantry, guys. It's about the pageantry.
It is.
So, all right. Continuing with my lightning round fall games preview. Phantom Pain. That doesn't have to be a lightning round.
I'll feed to Brian on this one.
Yeah, Brian said you wanted to talk about it.
I am super excited about it. I wasn't really feeling it until I saw the trailers at E3, and with all of the sturm and drang about Kojima leaving Konami and getting his name pulled off of it, and then, of course, everything going on at Konami, I feel like this is our last chance to get a true Metal Gear game. And so even though I feel like the series was done after Metal Gear Solid 4, and that was really where the story should have stopped, I really am curious to see what kind of tricks Kojima had up his sleeve for what's basically his last go-around with what he created. So it's a sentimental thing, and it's a creative thing, and I'm excited to see how it happens. Plus, Ground Zeroes was interesting enough and modernized enough that I really want to see what more of that looks like.
I'm very curious about, you mentioned the Sturm and Drang around it. That makes me very curious to see, Kojima is sort of infamous for putting messages about game development in his games, things like that. I just kind of wonder if, the ending of the game is just going to be, Big Boss burning down Bonami or something, like that. some very overt secret, not secret fu.
There's gonna be Easter eggs that even Konami doesn't know about.
Yep. Yeah, and the way his mind works, it's going to be so esoteric that they will probably slip by unnoticed, and people
plausible
who are just super
deniability.
into it will catch them.
Yep. That's the name of it. So, all right, next up, Mad Max. I have no particular opinions about Mad Max. I really liked that movie, though.
Perfect movie. Don't really care about the game.
All right.
A great movie. I really don't see what we're going to get in Mad Max that we're not going to see in a few months in Just
It's an
Cause
open
3.
world. Yeah, it's an open world driving game. It's just the world is very dusty. I don't know.
It'll probably be fine.
We'll see. It'll probably
It'll probably be perfectly serviceable, but
it's one of those
I'm not
it's probably all right.
or anything.
Skylanders Superchargers. I feel like I'm the only person who really has an opinion on this.
You're the Skylanders guy, Steve.
yeah, I like myself some Skylanders. Race cars seems like it seems like they're doing some fun stuff with that, and it's good that they have races in there because when they first showed that to me, I was like, "Do you have races?" And they sort of looked at each other and then said, "Are we? We're not talking about that today." And so I was like, "Okay, you have races," but now they have actually addressed it publicly because you can't have a game where you add race cars and not have player versus player races.
I would love to be a fly on the wall and find out who came up with the idea of putting racing in their game first. Was it Activision or was it Disney? Who came up with that idea first?
That's true. So next up, Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer. Does anybody?
Animal Crossing is really weird. I don't get the Animal Crossing phenomenon myself because I remember a couple years ago everybody was playing the one on the 3DS. Even at the Shack offices, Garnet and Andrew were always playing Animal Crossing, and it's like, okay, I tried this. I don't see the appeal in it.
When it came out on GameCube, I was all about it. But every time I've tried to get into it since then, I've been like, I don't. It's not doing anything for me. I don't know.
I played the 3DS one for a little while. I was very into it. I was tending and all that sort of stuff. Then I realized, wait a minute, this game. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. This game's not very good. So I'm excited for
And
people
that was
because
the
like
last episode of the Chattycast.
I'm going to be killed by people who have like Isabel shirts or something. But I appreciate what it is, and for the community and for the people who are interested in it, I appreciate that it's there for them. It's a game that needs to exist. I think it's just not something I have any real interest in. And I will say that the amiibo cards thing is going to be hilarious.
Well, it's going. Here's my real to just put a parting shot on it. It might not necessarily interest us, like the home designing aspect of Animal Crossing, like making that its own game. It's going to make Nintendo so much money.
Oh yeah, there's definitely going to be people that are going to buy it.
Ridiculous.
It is, and again, like there's an audience for this stuff that's not terribly well served by a lot of other games, and I think that stuff like Animal Crossing existing is great. I want there to be that big tent where there's a bunch of different stuff like that. So I'm glad Animal Crossing's there. I just will be doing something else.
And I never really begrudge any company for making a game that doesn't appeal to me, but that I know is going to help their bottom line to make games that do appeal to me.
There is nothing wrong with reaching out to an untapped market.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Lego Dimensions. I think Ozzy, you're the only one who has actual experience with this.
Lego Dimensions looks really cool. I mean, that's actually kind of like the next step in like the kind of like Disney Infinity Skylanders type thing, just because you keep switching the toys back and forth and like using them to solve puzzles. The positioning that you put them in actually matters, and the blend of those franchises is actually a lot of fun. I mean, just suddenly calling down a portal and having Homer come down with a wrecking ball and just knock down a wall from the portal testing chamber is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's weird how much different kinds of properties they've gotten. You know, Amiibo is all Nintendo stuff, or tangentially connected Nintendo stuff like Sonic. You know, Skylanders is its own stuff. Disney is all Disney and Disney-owned properties. For Lego, they're just like, let's just try to get a bunch of different stuff. let's get Portal in there for some reason. Let's get, you know, Batman and Back to the Future and Doctor Who.
It's Scooby-Doo. We just uploaded a Scooby-Doo trailer earlier today.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that game looks cool, and I think that they can do a lot of really neat stuff with it. The thing that bums me out is that it has the Lego tax on it, and it is by far the most expensive of the Toys to Life stuff, and that's why I'm going to, like, if it were on par, if it were like priced competitively with Disney Infinity and Skylanders, I probably would just be going full bore on that instead. Yeah. But as it stands,
I mean, my vision of what that game should be is probably too advanced for what the technology can even currently do. Where I'm like, you should just be able to build your own Lego stuff, and just be like, there, now scan it and let me play it. You know, but obviously you can't actually do that.
I will totally check it out when I can get the game and the Simpsons packs, which is really all I care about, for like $60.
Yeah, which I'm sure you're going to be able to do like next Christmas or something.
Sure.
So next
is that once you get past the whole novelty of the Toys to Life thing, it basically is another Lego game. So just keep that in mind going forward.
But Lego games can be really good. There was that Lego City Undercover game that I loved and just went criminally underappreciated. So next up, No Man's Sky. Is there any chance that lives up to expectations?
I hope so. I certainly hope so.
I'm looking forward to it, but I think people may have built that up into their mind to be something that the developers never really said it was. You know? So I'm a little afraid that there's going to be a bunch of backlash against it.
I am going to make a prediction right here on the Chattycast. I think that you're absolutely right, and that next year we will see No Man's Sky on more than a few biggest disappointments of 2015 list.
That may be. I mean, it's just become this
deservedly or not. Like, I don't think it would deserve it because I think what they're doing is still impressive. But
especially for such a small studio.
I'm not saying I think that game's going to be bad. Exactly. There's a difference between I think that game's going to be bad and I think that game has built up this cult of following that, you know, it may not necessarily even be trying to get. So next up, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5.
Oh God! Holy crap!
I have it on this list. I don't know. I used to like Tony Hawk games. Who knows?
So did I. I loved Tony Hawk games, and full disclosure, I even tested on a couple Tony Hawk games. But it feels like developer Robomoto just doesn't get Tony Hawk. Like from what I've seen of this game, it looks so bad. It looks so dated, and so I don't know what it is. Like
Hmm.
at this point, I feel like I'd get a better skating experience from Ollie Ollie.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah. Well, Ollie Ollie is really good. That's the other
it
thing.
is. It's
Um,
fantastic, but this
so we're going to speed through the rest of these. We might go a little bit long today, but that's okay. Rock Band 4, Ozzy as our resident sort of music game guru. You can chime in about both this and Guitar Hero Live at the same time.
All right. Rock Band 4, basically, from what I tried of it, basically feels like more, not even so much more Rock Band 3, but it feels like more Rock Band 2 in terms of like going back and kind of not focusing so much on the pro element. I basically haven't seen any mention of keyboard at all whatsoever. They're going back to what worked. And I can fully support that. I love the Rock Band games. I miss playing the Rock Band games. I'm going to be happy to be able to play them on my next gen consoles. And the best part is I can just basically use my old hardware, which was the biggest concern for me. That is why I'm not so much looking forward to Guitar Hero. Guitar Hero Live, just first of all, from what I've heard, the mechanical changes aren't really all that intuitive. Like it's incredibly hard to grasp and kind of hard to play.
Like
And
that's the up fret and down fret kind of thing.
Yeah, like it sounds like it's an interesting idea, but from what I've heard, it's not really all that user friendly. And on top of that, now I have to invest in another guitar. Like that's the exact reason that these kind of games died in the first place, and now we're right back where we started. So
I will say, I think they're both sort of pursuing. They both kind of came to the same conclusion, but they're pursuing it in different ways. They both kind of came to this conclusion of like, okay, people just like us because we're like fun party games. Like people aren't buying Rock Band because they're like, I'm going to learn guitar, and this is going to be the stepping stone to that. You know.
That's the mistake I feel like Harmonix made with Rock Band 3, is that they really did try to go towards an audience going, I want to learn how to play for reals. And there is an audience, but it's really small.
Yeah,
and
the bigger audience is the people that's like, they've got some beers, they've got a bunch of people over, they're like, let's play some Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Exactly, and that's what I think Rock Band 4 is getting back. I think that's the kind of spirit that I feel is prevalent again, and I'm really happy to see that. Yes. Guitar Hero, I always looked at Guitar Hero as kind of like the Score Chasers game, and I don't know. I'm just not. I mean, we'll see if I get the vibe again. I mean,
well, Guitar Hero Live, I think, is more their approach to just making it a hop-in party game, which is I gotta give them credit, is a different approach. I guess we'll see which one works out better.
And aren't they doing the subscription thing with Guitar Hero, like the GHTV or something like that?
I think you might be thinking of Just Dance. I think GHTV was, although that might be something. I don't know.
Maybe it's not a subscription, but I could have sworn it was like basically like a jukebox or radio thing where you could play a bunch of different songs and try them out.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's the GHTV thing. I don't know what their subscription model is for that.
I don't really have any interest in Guitar Hero besides that, but I'm glad to see them doing stuff like that.
Yeah, my high hope.
It's an interesting idea.
My silver lining for Guitar Hero, this is my high hope for it, is that Freestyle Games is actually a really good developer, and their game that they're basically most recognized for is DJ Hero, and DJ Hero went under a lot of radars. That was actually a really good game.
Was actually pretty good. Yeah,
liked. It was a cult hit. So now that they're on Guitar Hero, like they can do some good things with it. So I'm hoping for the best.
That is cool. So next up, Rainbow Six Siege, which was just recently pushed into December, where it's going to have no competition, but also no chance for Black Friday sales.
I wouldn't go so far to say no competition because I think it might be going up against Just Cause 3.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Square's Just Cause 3. That's another one on our list that we'll get to shortly. But yeah, Rainbow Six Siege. I really liked Rainbow Six Vegas. I did not so much like Rainbow Six Vegas 2. So I've been, kind of looking forward to this. We don't know that much about the single-player elements of it yet. I don't think. We've just seen a lot of player versus player matches, basically.
And those are pretty good, to be fair.
I kind of just want my AI squad mates to be able to direct them without having to worry about if my dumb friend's going to listen to me. No, present company excluded. I'm not talking about you.
No, I would totally be the dumb friend. Like what?
Hold here, Brian, and he just runs in like Leroy Jenkins.
Don't stand against that wall.
I'm about to plant some charges. Make sure you're away from the wall.
What?
Stand next to the wall? Yeah. Anyway.
I'll be right near by the wall.
Yoshi's Woolly World.
Yes.
Finally.
All right. It's so freaking cute. We're not getting it till the fall. Europe has had it for a month now.
You're
bastards.
So frustrating. I want it now, and it needs to be here. And why isn't it here? And when can it get here?
I mean, my entire impressions is what I played basically at E3 this year. It's very cute. We all already kind of know that. But also, it's like actually challenging. Like if you want to collect all the little yarn balls, especially. But just there was a stage that we played. That the stage itself was just like this is actually pretty hard. Um, so I'm excited about that. I enjoy Nintendo's difficult platformers.
And
Ozzy?
I'm happy to get one of those difficult platformers. I am a huge fan of the Yoshi's Island series. My last Yoshi's Island experience was not pleasant. Yoshi's New Island on the 3DS was my most probably up at the top of my most disappointing games list for last year. I remember I think we scored like a 4 on Shaq. Like it's not good. And from what I've tried of Woolly World, it's absolutely a lot closer to what the older Yoshi's Island was. It takes wonderful advantage of the gimmick, and like you said, like it's accessible for just about everybody, whether you're like a rookie or you're just like looking for a challenging platformer.
Yeah, you can turn on the easy mode where you're like you really can't die and you'll be fine.
It's gonna have co-op.
Yeah,
It's gonna have co-op. That's
and the
gonna be
co-op that we actually did play co-op at E3. It was great. That was the level that we were struggling with because we chose to go with the hardest level on co-op. But yeah, it was great. So Halo 5 Guardians, I'm very excited about because I love the Halo gameplay loop, and I was kind of hoping that Destiny would just be like that forever, but it wasn't really. It was that mixed with some other things that I didn't like as much. But Halo 5 Guardians looks really cool. I love the Halo loop, and I think that new sort of massive mode that they've got going is a really cool way of mixing objectives in a way that it's not just, I get into a match and I'm looking to kill the other guy as much as possible, which kind of bores me, and I never really play those games.
I am looking forward to seeing where the story goes. I'm going to be all in on the single player. Multiplayer, I don't know. Jury's out for me, just because I remember having played the multiplayer on the Master Chief Collection, going into the Halo 5 beta, and then coming back to the Master Chief Collection. I'm just like, okay, 5 doesn't feel like a Halo game anymore.
Mm.
It really does feel like something completely different. And I don't know if I like that or not. So
It's not inherently bad, but yeah, like when you have a series that's very established in terms of how it operates and how the mechanics work, and then you're like, okay, well, we're going to chase this other zeitgeisty thing.
Yeah,
I can see why people would feel alienated by that, but it might be kind of the trade-off they have to make to really reach the audience and try to reclaim some of the audience that they've lost to things like Call of Duty.
all of the esports stuff, especially. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it looks cool. I'm excited for it. I'm not as excited for it as I am for some other things, but I believe I still have it pre-ordered, so I'll probably be checking it out.
All right, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Anybody? All right. Well,
yeah, we're gonna have to wait till that comes out, because if we making prognostications with Assassin's Creed is useless at this point.
yes.
Like,
I will say I loved. I think it was Susan Arndt who said this on Twitter. She said something about how the plot should go along normally, and then the twist at the end should be like the girl was the real one, and the other one was like a figment of her imagination. I would find that so amusing, but I don't think that's probably going to happen.
Yeah, I'm still not a huge fan of how Assassin's Creed seems to think, okay, well, we'll do diverse characters and unique settings, but we'll put them all in the side games.
In the spin-off games, yeah.
Yeah, like where they don't count. But the main storyline is basically white dudes, dark hair, pirates, Victorian London, stuff like the stuff we've seen.
They have had non-white dudes. They had a Native American dude, but everyone hated him.
I loved him. He's my favorite of all of them. Connor is my favorite. And I always get so much guff for that.
I feel like at this point, Assassin's Creed, just to go off on a mini tangent here, but Assassin's Creed 3 with Connor was trying to do a protagonist who was not particularly likable. He had a chip on his shoulder, but for good reason.
Yeah.
But they had made such a hit with Ezio, and now they just keep trying to make Ezio. They keep trying to make the fun, carefree playboy who becomes an assassin.
Arno was very Ezio.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's the issue.
They've been trying to catch that magic like again and again, and it just kind of prevents them from making more interesting characters. These two we can talk side by side. I don't know if any of us have super strong opinions on them. Need for Speed and The Crew Wild Run. I am not a huge racing player, and Daniel is not here. He is sort of our racing aficionado. But does anyone care particularly about those?
I have no strong opinions on them one way or the other. If The Crew is going to be kind of a fix to what The Crew was last year, That's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, I liked Need for Speed Rivals, so more of that, that's cool with me, I guess.
I
That's
didn't
fine.
think Need for Speed needed a reboot. That's just me, though.
I think they're using the term reboot real loosely. Like,
Yeah.
like what is it? What is even a reboot of a series that doesn't have a consistent story or characters? It's just a driving game. You're just making another driving game, guys. Ozzy, you already talked a little bit about COD Lops 3. Do we want to add anything else to our talk about that?
I hope that
I
they take some good stuff. I really liked Advanced Warfare. It's the first Call of Duty I've actually liked. I hope they do more of that. That's really all I got.
4-player co-op in the campaign should be really interesting. Like that's
Yeah,
I want
that
I
does
want
look
to see
cool.
how that
That
goes.
was what, sort of the centerpiece of the trailer they showed me at E3 was 4-player co-op. We're almost done, guys. Rise of the Tomb Raider. I'm super excited.
Yes.
Laura's basically a sociopath at this point. But yeah, I'm still super excited. I don't care if they're dropping all pretense of the survivalism thing.
I'm still really bummed that that's going head to head with Fallout. Like, why?
Well,
Why are they making us choose?
I'm
All
sure
right,
I'm sure they'll both do pretty well. But yeah, that is kind of unfair.
I know I'm going to make the choice of Tomb Raider. I'm sorry, but that's just I'm going with Tomb Raider over
I'm probably
Fallout.
going to Tomb Raider also.
I feel like Tomb Raider is Fallout. I'm probably like on day one, but Tomb Raider is going to be my. I want to at least ask for that for Christmas if I don't get it any other time kind of game. Star Wars Battlefront, as a Star Wars fan who has read an embarrassing number of EU fiction, that is very exciting for me. I don't even really like. I don't have like a lot of history with the Battlefront series, but just like it looks like they're really doing Star Wars right, and that's kind of what excites me about it. And Ant Hillbilly actually commented on that. He said he's excited about it because it will return the Thursday night Shack battle.
Which it's interesting that he says that because the Thursday night Shack battle for the past year or so has been Battlefront 4, and Battlefront 4 hasn't gone away. Like it's still coming out with new content.
He did
like,
mention that there should be a
there's supposed to be
patch
new
for that
update
coming
for
as well pretty soon.
for Battlefront 4 next month. So
Yeah.
like that's still going to be around. Like DICE is almost going to be competing with themselves in that front. So that should be interesting.
Yep. Moving on, XCOM 2 looks really cool. I want to play it. I like me some XCOM.
You know what? I was bummed that it was PC exclusive, but I've got a PC now, so I don't care.
Yeah, it looks like
on.
more XCOM, which I'm like, yep, that's what I want. It doesn't look like it's reinventing the wheel because XCOM Enemy Unknown already kind of did that. So the final game on our list here, Just Cause 3, the biggest, craziest thing.
It's a Michael Bay movie in game form, and I say that in the best possible way.
I love how
absolutely
all of
mean
the
that as a compliment.
interviews about Just Cause 3 is like, how did you decide to do this? And basically the developer's answer is always just like, we just thought like, what's the like most batshit thing I could do in this situation? And then I did that. They just kept trying to top themselves, which is a lot of fun to watch.
I love it. Their entire goal is just to have fun. They like the story is secondary to them. They just want, can I blow shit up? Can I do it in a fun way? I love it. I'm all in
It's
on
the
it.
open world game that like doesn't take itself too seriously. It's like, yeah, I know it doesn't make any sense that if you launch your grappling hook at the ground, you survive. But whatever, it's more fun that way. So yeah, any remaining thoughts on this fall's lineup? It looks pretty packed, as you can probably tell by us just talking about it for like 40 minutes straight. Which means we're all going to be very busy and tired.
Very much so. I'm very much looking forward to like the full fall lineup. There's also a lot of stuff that's not on our immediate radars that is going to catch us by surprise.
Yeah,
Personally,
the indie games and unforeseen things are always the fun surprises.
I am definitely
and also just
looking forward-
DLC for just big DLC for games we already love, like Witcher 3 and all that.
About to get to that because one of the DLC pieces that I'm really looking forward to is Plague Knight for the campaign.
Oh yeah, Plague Knight for Shovel Knight! It's imminent, any day now.
Right. Like it's supposed to be out before October. Yacht Club already tweeted out that it's finished. So
yeah, they're
the drop
basically
is
just waiting
imminent.
for CERT, and then they're gonna push it out. So.
And I'm also just waiting on the endings for Life is Strange and Tales from the Borderlands, both of which look to go out with a bang. I'm looking forward to both of those like immensely. Like I really want to see how both of those stories end. It's funny because I might be an outlier on Tales from the Borderlands. Like everybody is raving about episode 4. I personally liked episode 3 a little better. Like I don't think 4 was bad at all, but I kind of just liked 3 because, it was paced a little better. There's a little more action in it. Felt like there was a little more humor, better character moments. But either way, both of those finales are going to be insane. Like I can't wait.
Yeah. So it's time for our sponsors. Brian, if you would please do the honors.
I will indeed, Steve. Steve.
Yes.
Just had to scroll back up to get.
It's like a running gag where he always starts the segment by going, Steve. Yes.
Steve. Audible is offering you, as well as the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, a free audiobook download as well as a free 30-day trial to check out their service. There's lots of great books on games, technology, and hundreds of other topics to choose from. Every week, we're going to highlight one that we've personally enjoyed, and we think you might too. This week, it's one I'm very excited about. It's Jane McGonigal's Reality is Broken, in which the scholar and game designer introduces the concept of happiness engineering and challenges conventional wisdom to suggest that playing video games can, in fact, help us become more creative, motivated, and empowered and cope with problems in our everyday lives and workplaces. I love this book. I've used it in my classes. Now you can listen to Reality is Broken or any of over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download. Just visit audibletrial.com/chattycast. Again, that's audibletrial.com/chattycast.
Thank you, Brian. We're going to rush through our news bits really quick because we got to make time for Beat the Doc. It's like everyone's favorite new segment.
Oh, yeah.
And by everyone, I mean like mine. So newsy bits. Ozzy, actually, you wrote this story, and it's one of our newsy bits. Gearbox Software and 3D Realms, they ended the Duke Nukem litigation.
Well, that whole story was centered around that unauthorized Duke game from last year. You know, you saw the giant timer with the alloutacum.com thing, and
yes.
Gearbox is just like, well, that's news to us. So yeah, that's going to court.
And it was Interceptor Entertainment, I think. I forgot to mention their name.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I think everybody is just wanted to see all this go away, especially since I think Interceptor has actually moved on to a completely new project called Bombshell. So they want to focus on that. Gearbox would like to, Randy Pitchford already came out a few weeks ago and said that he'd like to see Duke get a new game. He doesn't want to see Duke go out on Duke Nukem Forever, and nobody does.
Who does? Yeah, exactly.
So this all needed to go away, and I'm just happy that everyone just kind of ended this somewhat amicably.
Yeah, and it seems like it just kind of fizzled. Like there was no big battle or changing circumstance that made it happen. It was just like they challenged them on it, and then they're like, okay. Then it's done. So next newsy bit, last newsy bit. Skylanders Battlecast is a free-to-play CCG for mobile devices. For some reason, coming next year, they announced this like oddly far in advance for a mobile game. So basically, Activision just wants all of the money, is what I'm thinking. All of it.
Why would Activision compete against themselves like that?
Well,
I mean, who's going to be playing Battlecast? It's not going to be like guys like me. It's going to be kids.
All right, fair enough.
I'm picturing it as baby's first Hearthstone, but I don't know. We haven't seen it in action yet. I will say I found the commercial hilarious because it was like teenagers, and they always use teenagers to advertise products for like kids who are not teenagers. And so it was like a bunch of teenagers would not be like making those faces playing this. They would not be amazed and awestruck. They would be like, "Oh, this is a lame baby game for babies." So yeah, but I'm sure it's going to do gangbusters because it's both Skylanders and a CCG.
Yeah, but this is basically, it's the MOBA phenomenon all over again. We're getting a CCG bubble.
Everybody wants to make a CCG. Yeah, Blizzard keeps starting these things. We've got what all do we have? We have Hearthstone, of course. Magic sort of has made very significant changes to its digital games to try to catch up. Elder Scrolls, which we still don't even know what it is, but Elder Scrolls. There's a Star Wars one on the way, which really I'm afraid of. And now we've got Skylanders, along with every other kind of non-licensed imitator out there that's been trying to jump on that bandwagon. So yeah, what have you done, Hearthstone? See what you have wrought.
You and your $20 million that you've made.
Any other shots or thoughts about Battlecast? Which, by the way, crazy generic name. Like you. They were like, well, Hearthstone doesn't necessarily say cards, so Battlecast.
Yeah, it almost looks more complicated than Hearthstone based on what I've seen. I'm like, there's a lot going on in those cards.
I did see on the cards that they still had their elements, which I'm like, oh man, they're like 8 to 10 elements, depending on which ones you count in Skylanders. And part of Hearthstone's beauty is its simplicity. If you start keeping the element thing intact in Skylanders, I don't know, that might overcomplicate it to the point that it's no fun. That's sort of my only concern.
I mean, the target audience will get it. Kids are pretty, like, their minds are kind of attuned.
Yeah, kids
to
can
that
remember
sort of
like
thing.
a dozen Pokemon elemental.
Yeah, they'll get
ones
it
that
straight.
don't even make any sense. Yeah, like
I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't play like the Pokemon card game. I think there might be some similarities there, and if that's the case, if I were them, I'd use
Probably.
that as kind of like a starting point.
which, by the way, that Pokemon card game coming to iOS really seemed to fizzle. I haven't heard like anything else about it since then, which seems like such a missed opportunity because that was already a huge card game. And if they just
There was no phone version. I think that's what hurt them.
yeah, that's true. So at any rate, it is time once again for Beat the Doc, the part of the show in which I abuse my hosting powers by pitting my friends against each other in a pointless game. As always, our guest will go first. Today's game is called Why So Low. I'm going to quote a negative review from a generally well-regarded game. You have to name the game it's referring to. As always, dead giveaway phrases and names have been replaced with blanks. To tie it in thematically to this episode, and to make it a little easier on you guys, all of these are previous installments of series that we talked about coming this year. That's why I told you to pay attention earlier in the show. So, Ozzy, what game is this a review for? A bottomless chasm separating the story and the gameplay is the biggest problem of this blank. Developer rebooted the series with an origin story. The developers wanted to show us how Hero learns to kill, but in reality, you can't suspend your disbelief even for a minute. Though Hero sighs and whines a lot, her superhuman vitality would make Wolverine green with envy.
Tomb Raider.
That is the Tomb Raider reboot. That is the review from Riot Pixels, yes. So, Ozzy, that is one point. Brian, playing through an updated version of the original blank was at times tired or tedious, but it was also a reminder of the raw genius that launched the series. There is none of that in blank, which is a drawn-out retread without any fresh perspective or energy, and furthermore missing a lot of what I need to pull me through a blank game. Blank demonstrates that if there's one thing worse than more of the same, it's less of the same. What? That's a little less dead giveaways. I don't have a her pronoun in there.
All right. Well, let me go back and look at the list here. I'm going to guess that it is Halo 4. I don't know.
It is Halo 4. That is quarter to
Oh,
three.
nice.
Quarter to three's review of Halo 4. You are tied.
I had
Ozzy.
no idea.
All right, Ozzy. This one's a little tougher. They do get tougher as we go along. Ozzy, blank can hardly be called an average game. It's a good one, undermined by a selection of mediocre elements, and it's all the more frustrating this time around because developers shows us glimpses of just how much fun 2 weeks on holiday with Hero should be.
Just Cause 2.
Just Cause 2. That was Edge's review of Just Cause 2. You can tell by the 2 weeks on holiday. Brian, this next one is for you. You can tie it up. The Blank series is one of my favorite gaming series ever, which is why it's so painful to see Blank fall short in so many ways. It's not a bad game and certainly serviceable one to younger audiences and new players. Unfortunately, for those who have followed Hero since his first starring role nearly 20 years ago, this game is a tremendous disappointment. Who can you think of that might have had a starring
That sounds
role 20
familiar.
years ago?
Yoshi? Yoshi's New Island?
Yoshi's New Island. That is the Shack News review.
I knew this one. Wait a minute.
That's why I needed to have Ozzy on. I needed him to come on. All right. So a tie is possible. I honestly didn't think Brian would get that one, but whatever. Neither of you might get this one. Creatively, I'll just give you a chance to buzz in on this one to break the tie. Creatively, Blank gets almost everything right. Mechanically and technically, it's a tragedy. So it's simultaneously a rewarding and frustrating game. The gulf between what it is and what it could be, a sizable stretch indeed.
Is this Assassin's Creed Unity?
Brian, do you have a guess?
No.
All right, that was the Edge review of Fallout New Vegas.
Oh.
I tried finding a negative one of Fallout 3. They apparently don't exist.
I was gonna say I thought New Vegas was pretty well received too. Like
It was pretty well received. Yeah, I mean, like most of the reviews were mixed to good.
New Vegas was well received. It just had a lot of bugs.
It
Sure.
did.
As
Yeah.
I thought was the issue.
Mechanically and technically, it's a tragedy, you might say. So
Yeah.
so that is the show. You guys are tied up on that game. I enjoyed quoting Ozzy in front of him. When I first did that, I was like counting like who would have each one, and I was like, wait a minute, I'd give that one to Ozzy. That wouldn't be fair. Anyway, so thanks for listening. We still have codes for Rainbow Six. Go on to our iTunes page, send us a review. It's not beginning till September, so like I've said before, we are sort of taking our time with that contest. You have time to write a review, but best to get it in early before you forget about it, because you will forget about it. Everyone always does. And I know I always do. Whenever somebody asks me to leave a review when I'm listening to a podcast, I always forget. So don't be like me. That's what I'm saying.
It's just good advice in general.
In general, yeah. Don't be like Steve.
I have a bracelet that says
TSA posters.
WSWND.
What would Steve not do? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the George Costanza paradox. You think of what I would do, and then you do the opposite. Anyway,
Exactly.
That's the show. Ozzy, do you have any content you want to plug before we sign off here?
Let's see. I am probably going to be looking at a couple of games for next week that I don't want to talk about just yet, but I'm also going to be playing more of the Black Ops 3 beta this weekend. That should be pretty fun. And, of course, going through more of the Tavern Brawl.
Of course, yeah. I'm going to be playing that thing to death.
And I didn't get to talk about Tales from the Borderlands Episode 4 too much, other than probably like the dissenting opinion on it. But we are going to be looking at the finale coming up. Like we're gonna start a couple of we're gonna start asking some questions, including a very pivotal one that's been on my mind since the start of that series. So keep an eye on Shack News for that.
Yeah, and then as long as we're plugging things, I don't actually usually do this, but we have a pretty cool feature coming up in which Chatty will get to talk to developers directly. So that's going to be coming up. There might be an edition later this week. There's definitely going to be one next week. I figure the people who listen to Chattycast are the type who are engaged in our community and want to be involved. So keep an eye out for that. So we want you involved with that. It should be some fun times. So that is it for me. Brian, do you have any classes you want to plug?
Come over and roll. I don't have anything to plug yet.
I gave everyone else a chance, including myself. I thought it was only fair.
Journal articles. I think I'll see you all next week. How about that?
Yeah.
I'll come back here next week. I'm going to be on the Shack News Chattycast next week.
Yeah.
So
we are
come
actually
back
excited
and
for
listen
next
to
week's
that.
edition. We have sort of something a little different and special planned. So
Yeah,
that should be fun.
I'm excited for it. So
Yeah, it should be good. So for Ozzy Mejia, I am Steve Watts.
I'm Brian Carr.
And we will see you on Chatty.